Welcome to Pray for Micah. And now your host, Micah Chrisman.
Welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast, where we explore art, activism, spirituality, and our cosmic insignificance / significance. I'm here with Evalyn Ngugi. Gookie. Like cookie, but Gookie. That's how she taught me to say her name. And Evalyn is a Kenyan-American poet, visual artist in Kansas City, Missouri. Through her work, she tells the stories that make up her life, the many stories. We're going to get into some of those stories later, I hope.
Yes.
The challenges she has faced along with the joys of everyday living, whether it's painting, photography, poetry, she aims to capture the fullness of life in its many forms. Evalyn, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
The crowd goes wild. Woo! Evalyn! Evalyn! Here she is. So, funny story, we just met.
Yeah.
And you didn't really remember meeting me the first time at the coffee shop. You were just like, who is this crazy white dude? You know, saying he knows me. But we met at Core Coffee here in the Northeast. And then we ran into each other again at Gift, which is generating income for tomorrow. It's a nonprofit. Yes. You were there taking like photos for your portraits work.
Yeah. So they have like a free studio, or like everything they do is free for everyone. So, or business owners, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in there trying to get some self-portraits. Hopefully I want to do like a poetry project here soon. So just gathering content and yeah.
That was a really fun day. So I was there just to have a meeting for a campaign that we're working on. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Be Great Together. Let's see, Swag Inc. and The Future of Us, Gift, and Mastery of Self. Those are the 5 nonprofits that are doing a campaign called for Give Black KC campaign this year. So I'm helping out, do stuff for that campaign in June. So if you all want to donate to some cool organizations, Give Black campaign, you can go to giveblackkc.org and donate. So anyways, I was at Gift. That's what, generate income for tomorrow is the acronym. And was only supposed to be there for an hour. And then was like, hey, I kind of want to check out your guys' studios. So Cornell was showing me. Totally just barged in on your whole setup.
You did. But it was cool. You guys helped me take pictures.
Right. And
so
then
it worked out.
That's what I loved about it. It's like we were just a bunch of artists just sitting there chilling. I ended up hanging out there for 4 hours that day or 3 hours. I don't know. It was, I don't know. That's what I just appreciated about the easygoingness of the space. We're supposed to get an agenda and figure out the whole run of show for the banquet that they're hosting. But then we were like, hey, I'm holding up a reflector, trying to get some good lighting for you. And it was just hella fun. Just to be able
it really was. Yeah. It seems, I've only been there twice, but every time I go there, I develop new relationships, which I think is super cool. If you have not been there, you should check it out. And Core Coffee.
Core Coffee, yeah. Mm-hmm. So you work for them too, don't you?
I did for a little bit, but I took a step back. I was doing their social media, so I was taking pictures and doing all that for them. But I took a step back just to focus more on my own art. I actually just graduated from KU.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Again, the crowd goes wild. They're throwing flowers now, the virtual flowers.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so I graduated 2 weeks ago with a bachelor's in psychology.
Okay.
So now that I'm done with college, I'm okay, I want to focus more on my own arts and figure out where I'm going and what I actually want to do with all of these talents that I have, so
the very many talents.
We shall see.
What was it like? Your KU, the program, did you enjoy it? Or were you done? You're I'm ready for a break.
Oh my goodness. Both. I loved college. I loved being at KU. It was a lot of fun. It was it was very interesting for me, just being first gen. So my brother did go to college, but he lived at home, and he went to like Drake University, which was like 15 minutes from where we grew up. And then he was also in the National Guard, so they paid for him. But for me, I was out of state and I lived on campus for a while. So it was a lot of new territory for my family and I. And being first gen, like, it was very challenging to navigate. But also as a student, like, it was a lot of fun to like get to have all of these new experiences, like watching, like the Black sororities and fraternities like do their step shows and stuff like that. Like, that was really cool. That was really fun. That was something I had not seen before. Or like things like that. Like, it was just very eye-opening, which I loved.
Yeah. Was your family worried you'd be corrupted by the liberal agenda?
No, they were not.
Because my family was. They were
Really?
like, "Oh, you're over here in college. They're taking your mind and they're warping you."
Oh,
you
no.
know.
But I mean, college is supposed to change your mind.
Yeah, that's what I told them. They're like, "You're the ones who encouraged me to go to college."
Right,
You're
exactly.
like, "Well, that was to get the degree, not to question
I don't know.
reality."
We're supposed to question reality. We should question reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I studied communications and I got my master's in mass communication, and that was like my most formative time of college. Like, bachelor's was cool. Like, I had a lot of good, just, earth shattering, reality breaking teachers and good things. But I don't know, with your master's program, you like pick one thing and you just like delve into it.
Yeah.
And just like, you're so sick of it by the time you leave. But and just studying like social movement rhetoric, that was kind of like my focus, because actually at the time, like, Ferguson was happening. And so basically was analyzing like, how does social movement spread through media, and how does it like, how do our bodies become an actual demonstration of protest, like of argumentation? So like, basically like the old school like rhetorical theory would just look at, here's our speaker, here's their audience, like Aristotle or some stage Greek thing, and how did it influence the beliefs and views of people. And now we can look at billboards, our form of argument, they're what colors you choose. And I just found that basically just the earth shattering just reality of like, oh, like, technology is speeding up so fast now that we can like rally together people to do a whole social movement change through basically groundwork, grassroots journalism.
Yeah. Huh. That is interesting. So like, what do you think about social movements?
I think that what I think is going to be difficult going into the next stage of like government and everything going on is that it's harder to sustain social movements through social media, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you have like examples of like the Arab Spring, right, where things went super viral, and they were basically protesting their own fascist regimes, basically, dictators. And then they start shutting down access to those social media platforms because they want to create this unity. They don't want these protesters organizing through these channels. And so I think it's a tool. I just think that, it's harder to get folks to just not just take a selfie at the protests, Yeah. And I've been guilty. I think there's lots of people who just like, hey, I'm trying to raise awareness of a cause, so I'm going to take a picture. I'm not judging folks who show up to. My whole thing is, if you showed up, you show up, you know?
Yeah.
But it's how you show up afterwards.
Exactly.
That makes it,
Definitely.
I think, critical.
Yeah.
And then just the nature of where social media is going. Like, that was like 2014, when when Mike Brown was killed. It's 2022. So now like things, I mean, Facebook was already becoming dated with the people who are growing up with it. But now you got things like TikTok that's just like, keep it under 7 seconds. And like, we will just make this viral if you keep it 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And so I just think there's an instant gratification. I mean, they know what they're doing, right? It's a dopamine. So I just like, I'm not saying it can't be used for social media, like for social movement work, but yeah, when things are going viral and they're only 7 seconds long, how does that really speak to the core of what the thing is that you're trying to protest or raise awareness about?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like there's not as much longevity with it, you know, and like you see it for 7 seconds and then the next thing you know, like you're watching a different video about like somebody's life and then you forget about it. And in the long run, like that doesn't actually make a difference, you know, like you raise awareness for 7 seconds, but after that there's no action, you know. I think that's like really, that's sad because like the world is changing so quickly and there's so many issues and so many things that like deserve attention, but I feel like my generation especially has lost communication, or like let me rephrase that. I feel like my generation doesn't know how to talk about things deeper than the surface, if that makes sense, because of social media.
Yeah, or maybe they communicate differently, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm with you, though. Like, I mean, I'm 33 years old. I'm going to be real, you know, like, I can relate to 20-somethings, but you try to get me talking to, like, a Gen Z person or younger, like, I just realized really quickly, like, oh, I'm talking like an adult to this person. Yeah. Like, hey, how's it going? Like the other day I was talking to, a friend who, there you have a kid who's like in high school. I think he's like 15, 16, you know, and I'm just like, how's life, you know? And just,
they don't know how to talk.
Yeah, he just looks at me, oh, it's good, you know? And, you know, how's school? How's work? And like just try to make relatable conversation. Now, if I was friends with this person, we were texting, maybe he would be blowing things up, you know?
Yeah.
That's the other thing is like I realize I still like to call certain friends and we'll chat for like an hour, you know, or longer. I'll have people literally just like I call them and they don't answer and they're just like send me a text like, who calls anymore? Like, no. Like just shoot me a text, you know? And they're like, funny. Yeah, that hit me to my core. Like, fine, you know? Like, I thought I want to just talk to you, okay? I just want to hear your voice, you know? Aww. I mean, I get it there at work, but it's just like that's a whole growing thing. Like,
yeah, it is.
No one calls each other anymore.
No, you just like send a text and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the world and technology. I mean, yeah, we've talked about it before on the show. I mean, I don't spend all my day talking about Elon Musk or anything like some of these other people out here in the world. But when this Neuralink happens, have you heard about that?
I have.
Yeah, you know, if he stops killing monkeys and, you know, or whatever to get it made. But at some point, yeah, it might just be like, I think a text goes to somebody and they communicate directly to my brain back.
I don't agree with that. I don't like that. I hate that idea. I really do. Like, I do not believe in that.
I'm not saying that that's what it'll be able to do, but something like it, this is the precursor to that world, right?
I don't like that. I don't want to be in that world whatsoever.
Let me swipe on my social media that's floating in front of my eyes. Oh, you know, like it'll all just be Neuralink tapped right into the brain.
I do not want technology in my body. I don't think technology should go in my body at all. No.
Okay, but to be devil's advocate, what happens when you have a hip go out, you know, someday and they're like, we could put this new AI robotic hip that will move and it's 99% better than the...
Let me just... No, I'm good.
Just let me have my ball and joint hip that they gave my grandparents when they were back in the 2000s, like early 2000s.
Literally, yeah, no, I'm good off that.
Yeah. Yeah, at the same time, like... Yeah, people are like, oh, technology is just, it's going to be so much better in the future and it makes life so much easier. And I feel like the truth is that the more technology we make, that just means the more shit that breaks down.
That's true.
It's just another thing to just get broken and need something else to fix it. And yeah, it might make my life, you know, simplified in certain avenues right now, but... Then it'll break, and then they'll like, well, we have the fancier, newer link that.
There's always going to be something new. There's always going to be another product, and I don't feel like we need it. I think like there's so much beauty in like knowing how to work with your hands, or like knowing how to like fix something yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we need that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult for the robots, they say, to like take care of like plumbing or do some of these skilled labor things, but at some point they'll be able to take over a lot of our jobs. Like they've even said, like for marketing, like I always think like, well, the creative world, right? Marketing, communications. It's like
they have robots for that too.
Yeah, they've already got stuff. Like I'm already part of a thing where we're using a program for a nonprofit, and you just plug in some phrases,
and then it comes up,
and then it spits out a press release.
Yeah.
And at some point, when I have my Neuralink, I'll just think to the computer, and it'll just. Now I will say, if there's a promise that I use that thing and it helps me write books faster, if it's something where I can think things and it just starts to like, I mean, by that point, then it doesn't matter. No one's reading books because everyone's writing books with their brain. But in my mind, I'm like, that's always just like the hardest part, right? It's like whether it's our phone or I'm the intermediary step between what's in my head and what I'm creating. Mm-hmm. Which is part of being an artist, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's part of the growing process. Like I learn when I type and when I'm putting myself into the thing using my body. But I mean, we all have seen The Matrix. We can't help but wonder, like, well, how nice and convenient would it be if I could just plug something in and it just spits out a book of poetry? I don't know.
Yeah. But then, like, what happens to like humans? Because there comes a point where like you can't make anything new because like you're not using your own brain. You know what I mean? Like humans don't have the capacity to think for themselves because everything is being done for them. So like what happens to the world when we get to that point?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's scary times. I mean, one could argue that we're starting to see pieces of that even now. Like we said, like put a thing in, it spits out a press release. Like, I mean, that's the thing. We're already kind of cyborgs. We already live. This is my alarm. This is my communication device. This is my video audio recording device when I'm out in the streets. But yeah, I'm with you though. You're sharing how you're from Iowa, so I want to hear more about your life and journey from there. But just to me, I've always had a green, I don't know, a green spirit. I guess I like running around in the woods and being in nature. And so I think I would feel pretty depressed if I was surrounded by robots and implants and things that are just some kind of futuristic city where, just let me go back out into the mountains, or somewhere just... Write my book with my ink and quill pen. Yeah, quill pen. Just I got this hawk feather and now I'm using that to write. So tell me about life journey of Evalyn. Start from birth till I'm just kidding. Start from the beginning. No, wherever you feel. What was Iowa like?
Iowa. Oh gosh.
Well, share the larger context because you said Kenyan-American, so you got your family.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So my family is Kenyan, so we moved here when I was 5. So I grew up in Iowa, and then I I went to KU. So right out of college, I went to KU, which is actually like a funny story because I actually did not want to go to college. I wanted to take a year off, but my dad was like, no, you can't do that. And so it was like this whole argument. And I remember like we weren't talking for a while. And my mom was like, hey, like, okay, like just pray about it. If God tells you can take a year off, then I'll talk to your dad and you can take a year off. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. So I pray about it. And that night I have this dream about KU. And I'm like, God, I'm not moving from Iowa to Kansas. Like that's ridiculous.
That feels like a step backwards. Yeah.
Like,
wait, it got flatter and more farmland.
Right. Like if you're going to send me out of state, send me somewhere cool. Like, but anyway, I'm like, okay, I wake up that morning and I'm like, okay, God, like if you really do want me to go to KU, give me a sign. And so at the time I worked at the mall, and it was like about a 15-minute drive. And so I pull out of my driveway, and I will never forget, there was a car right in front of me from the minute that I pulled out of my driveway to when I got to the mall that had a license plate that said University of Kansas alumni. And I'm like, I'm not going to Kansas. I'm not going. Lord, I'm sorry, but no. So I get into work, and within the first hour of work, two separate people come in with Kansas t-shirts on. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. We're going to KU. So I went to KU, and life started, I guess.
Life started.
Yeah. I really honestly don't remember much about college though at this point. Like, I feel like it's just all a blur. Like, it went by so fast that I'm like,
Wow.
I don't know. We graduated, we're here.
Are there close friends you keep in contact from school?
There's a few. Yeah, there's definitely a few. I made some like really great friends. My RA, we ended up being really good friends, and a couple of like the ladies that were on my floor, of course. And the people that I went to church with, some of those people. But for the most part, like, a lot of the people that I went to college with, I don't think I really speak to as much anymore. I think we all went our separate directions, you know, which is kind of sad, but like, that's just adulthood.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had someone share, like, if you want to know what our friendships and relationships will look like in the future, just look at our parents, you know? Like, and I don't know, like, there's just been times, you know, it just ebbs and flows. Like, I've seen my parents have a lot of friends in their lives. Other times where it's like, yeah, they're just each other's friends, you know?
Right.
And so I just, you always want to just hold in your heart, like, no, but me and this person, we're going to be friends
forever
for the next 50 years.
Oh,
and it's like,
maybe that
you know,
happen.
There's a good chance that I'll be like my parents or anyone else's parents who just kind of like, you know, you have friends, one or two close friends, but you hang out once or twice a year, you know?
Literally, that's just life. But I think like there's such beauty in those friendships, because like I think long-term friendships are very like slow paced, and like you don't really see each other that much, honestly, because like you have your life and they have their lives. And like now I'm getting to the point where like my best friends are like married with kids, and I'm like single, trying to figure out my life. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
I've been there. Almost. Wait till you get to my age, and then what you see is like friends who get married, have kids, get divorced.
Oh no.
Get remarried, have new kids with that. Like, I mean, I've had friends who like got married in their, 20s, early 20s, and 10, 13 years later, you live a whole other life, by that point,
Yeah. You don't know where life is going to take you.
Yeah, So I like to think like, well, I saved myself from a lot of that drama, but I create drama at other places in my life, That's why I'm still single myself,
No.
Yeah, like... I had a joke where I was like, we should just get all of my exes on this show and just like do like an intervention for me. I'm still not there yet. If I'm still doing the show and I'm 40, I told myself I'm the problem, and then I'll have my intervention thing.
That's fair. So
until then, I'm just trying to like take it as like I know what I'm looking for, and I haven't found it yet.
That's fair.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, I'm really interested in this episode, though. So would you have all of your exes here all at the same time?
No, probably. Well, I don't know. That's a good point. I mean, I wouldn't really. I
think you should do it. It'll be fun.
I don't. Yeah, I could just set them all up and just, okay, everyone tell me what's wrong with me. And and then they'll just tell me, like, I don't know. I feel like all my quote unquote breakups have always been like mutual or definitely respectful. Like, I mean, I'm friends with most of the people I've, there's only been like maybe a couple where it was like, if we see each other at a function, they don't want to look at me, and it's like, I don't know. I just think like there's just some people, like emotions weigh heavy, and
it's hard,
and you can't carry that with you the rest of your life, like you just have to like, look, I still care about everyone I've ever dated, but yeah, it's just difficult to, yeah, I don't know, just try to find someone you want to share life with, but then have so much, I don't know. For me, what my biggest issues were like, there was like a 4 or 5 year stretch where it's like, I was like too Christian for the non-Christians, like in college.
Huh.
And then I got into this place where I'm like, I'm not Christian enough
For the Christians.
for the Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I'm like
I
that
know what
rebel
you mean.
child. And yeah, I don't know. Just for me, I was very much, I used to break up with folks who just weren't Christian enough for me, or they broke up with me because I wasn't Christian enough for them, you know? And I don't know. It's just interesting. Religion shouldn't, I feel like, it, you know, I get it's important to people and it impacts relationships, but like, yeah, at the end of the day, now I'm just trying to find like people with good character. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's, I told myself like, I'm just trying to like live up to like, who does Micah behind closed doors? And I want to be that person with that person. And I don't want there to be this like, it used to be like tick the boxes of,
Do you hear music?
so that's the ice cream truck coming down the street.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, there's an ice cream truck. I was like,
What?
is there a clown over here? Is there, what is happening? Puma, my cat? I let my dog and cat outside, so I was like, what are they up to now? Are they out there making music? Wait, it's just the ice cream truck guy. Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. I guess the whole thing is like, yeah, like there's no one I wouldn't have conversation with again, or, you know,
Yeah.
like I said, nothing was so bad that I feel like even the ones that it's awkward to, but it's not like, I don't feel, yeah, I don't think it's like, oh, I hate that guy. And it's just more like, it's awkward. Yeah. Like I just, you know,
Yeah.
had this fling and it didn't work out, and you
Yeah.
just have to move on because we're all human, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we're all trying to find who we are in life. And I guess I've just kind of come to accept that like the relationships that I see that are working, that have stuck it out, have been people in my family, friends, who are people who like basically have given themselves like grace and understanding to be able to grow and change into each other. And the ones who basically have decided like, yeah, I can't accept who you are now. I want the person I was dating 4 years ago.
Huh.
That's the ones that are doomed, I think, for failure.
That makes sense.
And so I just
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, I feel like I just got to find that person that like, hey, I'm not a church going Christian anymore, but maybe one day I will be again. Who knows? I'll never say never.
Right. Yeah.
But for me right now, that's not my journey anymore. That's not my faith journey. And so, but it used to be like, that was like the pinnacle of if we're going to be in a relationship. And I still go on Bumble dates, and girls, that's what they'll, if they're Christian, it's like, oh, you don't go to church. Oh,
Deal breaker.
oh, you drink, you know, or you do
Oh,
this or that. And
no.
it's like, yeah, it becomes this, okay, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
also just read my profile sometimes. It says spiritual, drink socially. It's like, what did you think was happening? I was spiritual for just Jesus or what? You know, like, no.
That's funny.
Anyways, tell me about, let's get the spotlight off me. The women aren't even here right now, but I'm like, you've got me in a sweat somehow. Like, it always just becomes this weird, like, yeah. Let's talk about, yeah, Evalyn, you share about your love life. There's no guys out in KU, huh? None that snagged your heart.
There are no guys
No
in my
corn-fed
life right now.
Kansans, huh?
No. I feel like I'm at a point in my life right now where I really just want to like figure me out, you know, like all the things that come with building my life before I bring anybody else into that. You know what I mean? I feel like so many
Sure.
like relationships fail because like you don't know who you are and you're trying to bring somebody else into your mess. And I just refuse to do that. I don't want, if I'm going to bring somebody into my life, they're not going to take away from what I have, but they're also not going to define my future, if that makes sense. I believe that like when two people come together, like it should be a very beautiful experience, and I don't want it to be messy. I don't want it to be toxic. I don't want it to be harmful to the other person or to myself. Yeah. So I'm just really in a place where like I am healing the wounds of my past, and like just learning to like let go of the life that I thought I would have, and like learning who it is that I am now, and like what my life looks like before I bring somebody else in.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That really resonates. Yeah. For any exes who might be listening, I also have been going to therapy for the last 2 years. and I think that going back to what you're saying, like the reality is we're never going to be our perfect selves for somebody else. We're never going to reach that, like, I have myself figured out.
Never.
But I do think I'm better at checking my ego, or keeping my, like understanding myself, like the patterns I have. So like when I see like, oh, why am I reacting this strongly towards this statement? They didn't mean it this way, but and you just realize, oh, this is like tied to some kind of emotional, self-image issue that I have. Yeah. And if people would just do more of that work, but what happens is, we just like project our shit. Yeah.
And like we use like other people or like things to cover that up. And like, that's not fair. It's really not. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel like this work on yourself outside of just even the scope of relationships? Like, what do you feel like your journey, like, what do you feel like you've discovered about yourself? What do you feel like you've learned about yourself?
Oh gosh. So much. I feel like what I've learned, the biggest discovery has been that I am a very independent thinker, and I don't like to be put in a box, like in any situation, whether that's like religion, culture. And I think part of that is like just, it's the way that I grew up, like being Kenyan, but being raised in the U.S., and like trying to like navigate that space, and then also like learning like my own spirituality, like my own faith. I just got to a point where I'm like, I don't believe fully in just one thing or like one little box. There's so much out there in the world that we really just don't know. And I believe that we should explore, like, what does it mean to be Christian? Like, what does the fullness of the Bible, like, what is it? Like, who is God, and who are you? Like, if you meet God, like, if you could ask God any one question, like, what would you ask him? And like, why is that the question that you would ask him? Or like, why are we here? Honestly, like,
hence the start of this show. Why I started, like, I just want to have conversations with people like, why the hell are we here?
Why?
And what do you like to do while you're here? And let me share what I like to do while I'm here. Because, it's a weird world we live in. We're on a floating rock right now.
Literally. Just
in a vastness of empty space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just vibing. Yeah. Earth's just vibing, man.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think about. Like, so I watch a lot of like PBS digital studios, like YouTube channels. So like they have one called Space Time, one called Eons, that like Eons looks at dinosaurs or prehistoric. Space Time looks at like literally physics and just nature of the universe. And they were talking about how like we're on a collision with the Andromeda galaxy. It won't be for like however many billions of years,
Yeah.
And just, all the times we think we have such a unique setup right now with us floating around the sun. And then they realize like, like, I don't know, it's just crazy. Like, we don't do just a circle around the sun. We kind of do a elongated oval because the moon kind of throws us out. And so they're just doing all these illustrations where it's just like, I don't know, just for me, it was just blowing my mind. Just seeing like, because, in our heads, we always have like the school graphs of just like, here's all the planets lined up real neat and stuff. And it's like, we're moving like, I don't know how many, like 30-something thousand miles. I don't even know. Don't quote me. Just research it. Go watch Space Time on PBS Digital Studios. But just like watching, and like it's amazing how if certain elements change, we would just be a gas giant like Jupiter and Saturn.
Everything would be different.
And then then you look at but then there's so many. I mean, there's just literally so many trillions of stars just in our galaxy and our neighbor galaxy Andromeda that they're just starting to realize any of these factors can kind of change or the environment a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're not so unique, and we're finding thousands now of these potentially livable planets that basically are the Goldilocks circle is what they call it. Just right.
I'm gonna look into that actually.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
I mean, they're so far away. There's no way we could get there. We'd have to literally, light years, and they were. I don't know. I was watching something else. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson said that for us just to go across our own galaxy, it'd be something like 100 million light years. What? Light years. Dang. That's going at the speed of light. And that's how long it would take. And so basically the only way to travel something that far is we'd have to basically pull a Star Trek move and invent something they call it the warp drive, where it's we bend space. It's like paper. If you picture paper bending, be able to just take a shortcut. We basically have to get from here to there. We have to find a way. So that's what blows my mind. Okay, let me say this. He was saying that if we could get to this certain point, I can't remember where it was on the other side of our galaxy, but if we could get to this point, let's say we could build a warp drive somehow, just within a couple minutes, we're on this side of the galaxy, and we decided to turn and look back at our over our solar system, over to where Earth is. The light from our sun from when the dinosaurs died would just now be reaching us. So 60 something million years.
Huh.
Again, don't quote me on the math or whatever. Just look up Neil deGrasse Tyson. But that blew my mind. So that's how the whole Einstein's on relativity, right? The idea that depending on where you're positioned at, it's relative to where space travel and thing where things are at. Space time is relative to your position. And so if we could somehow travel to the other side of our own galaxy and just look back at Earth, we're seeing the past. That's seeing so cool. The light from our sun. Cool. Yeah, we would be right now the dinosaurs, that flare is that asteroid hitting Earth. We would be seeing the past.
Yeah.
So that's why they talk about in science, the whole idea of how do we bend space and basically time travel across the universe.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That would be very, very interesting.
Because everything we're seeing is basically ancient, that's how we can see how the Big Bang happens, because we're seeing the gamma rays, or not the gamma rays, maybe it is gamma rays, but from that explosion, we can follow the trail and pinpoint back to where it started.
Huh. That is so interesting.
So I digress from my nerdy space talkingness. I want to delve more into what you were sharing about your faith journey and just how you're trying to not be in a box and discover God for yourself. So in this grand universe and this space rock we're floating on.
Yeah. I think I do believe in the fullness of the Bible, that Jesus died for our sins, all of that. But I don't believe in the American gospel.
Okay. Tell me more.
The more that I study the Bible and religion as a whole, the more I realize that there's so many things that have been changed and so many things that are missing that we just don't have in the American church. And for me, I just want to know those things that were taken out, or what was put in place of that, and make that decision for myself, you know what I mean? And discover the fullness of who God is without that without religion, honestly.
Sure.
And without it being tainted by man. Just because, like, there's so much of God that is missing when we, like, put ourselves in a denomination or, like, in a religion. Like, you don't find God in that, you know? Like, God can't be tamed. Like, he can't be put in a box. So, like, why do we put ourselves in a box? Like, if we're made in his image, like, why do we believe that, like, we're just, like, this one little thing? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, for me, like, it's really discovering that and, like, doing more research and, like, trying to find God in the everyday, in nature, like, in people, and just see, like, what it is that he created and get away from the religion of it. Yeah.
The man-made shit parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. I mean, when you look at church history, it's these different touch points of, like, human connection that sparked almost like many, like, these social movements.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably every single time it gets co-opted by some other group or power that's like, how can we leverage this to make people do what we want them to do?
Right, yeah.
I mean, Jesus literally started this whole kind of social movement, loving your neighbor, loving your enemies, and they were persecuted by the Romans for like 100 years, probably longer, I think. And then you have Constantine, who's like, there was already kind of a shift happening in culture where people started to accept it. Like, everyone's like, you know, kind of like how Christians are with the gays now. Like, okay, well, I can stand being around them, you know. Like, these Christians, maybe they're not the worst, you know. And then he's like, okay, well, let's make this the state religion. And so then you had, like, the desert fathers and mothers who were basically, you know, this is like a couple 100 years, 300 years after Jesus, who were like, this whole faith has been turned into just like, state religion. And they were like, let's go into the desert and let's weave baskets and scrounge around for food and be poor and destitute, but like feed the other poor, destitute people who have to also live out in the desert. And then after a long period of that time, people were like, hey, those people who are doing that stuff are really cool. We should do that. But, like, we should, like, call them something, you know? Let's make it like, okay, when you go to live in this, you know, this secluded place, we'll call that, you know, a hermitage. And it makes the whole Catholic, you know, they just make rules. Well, they were celibate. So let's make it a requirement that if you know, to be a priest, you have to, like, be celibate. You can't, you know, have sex. And you can go on and on and on. Like, the Protestant Reformation was a whole beautiful kind of quote unquote social movement to basically be like, hey, this Catholic Church is just trying to, you know, keep it all in Latin, and they're not wanting to read the Bible. And then they, you know, Martin Luther started reading in German and reading the scripture, and he's like, oh, we can all have a personal quote unquote relationship or divine connection with God.
That's kind of the point.
And they're like, no, only us Latin speaking people can read the text, and we better kill those people before they
oh my goodness.
And you could probably, I mean, again, my experience is I know a lot about the church. I grew up in a pastoral home, and so I know a lot of this history, but probably every religion has some element of that, right? I've even heard Buddhism, like, it just factions and breaks off, you know, similarly, like there's quote unquote, I don't know what they're called, you know, the conservative or the Buddhists are like, no, this is the original intention. And then they're like, no, we're trying to do this whole, like, new enlightenment, like, focus. And
Okay, so You grew up in the church. So how did your spirituality come to be? What was that journey for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, I mean, just honestly, since college, there have been moments where I feel like I could sneeze and just be an atheist. Like it just, like I give up, and at any moment I could just change. Just cause I grew up like not being taught like necessarily a terrible form of faith. Like we talked about loving our neighbors and this and that. But again, who was our neighbor? Not the gay folks, not the this and that. Yeah. And I just don't like, I think our intentions were overall good. But I've just had spiritual encounters that I can't explain.
Such as?
Like I've had dreams and things. I don't know. This is why I joke with people. I tell people, it's either there's a God and it's probably a black woman, or we're in a simulation. And the coincidences or the things that I see, I make those connections because maybe it's all a computer program. I don't know. But I like to think that even if it was, quote unquote, a simulation, I like to think that the intention behind its construction is to get to know us. Because maybe it's trying to mine information and data for the future super race of alien humans that are looking back at us like, okay, wait, so how did they start? Okay, so they were like monkeys, and then they like made nukes, and then we fucked it up, and then, trying to understand our history and our past.
Yeah.
This is just my off the wall, potential theories of if that was the case. But I know what it feels like to share a moment with somebody and our spirits, quote unquote, align and they resonate. And I know what it's like to sit with somebody who's suffering and to hold their hand and like reassure them it's going to be okay. And that love and that connection, I think, like radio waves, I think it echoes through the universe.
Yeah.
I think it keeps going. And so I don't personally feel like Jesus is the only way, the only truth. I think he was tapped into the truth, tapped into the way. That's my personal belief. And that's like, I just don't think that any one religion can claim and say, oh, but we've got it. We have all the truth. It's right here. It's in this text. So I don't know. I just think there was a transition, like where I used to like read the Bible, like this is the only word of God. Versus now I look at it as like a collection of stories from people who are trying to describe who God could be. I don't know. I saw a thing on TikTok too. if you'll bear with me, in the sacred application of TikTok, in the sacred scriptures of TikTok, there's a person who was like, "What if God is water, like literally water? And when water evaporates, that's like the death on the cross, so to speak. When it rains, it's like the resurrection." And it gives life. And it, I don't know. It just sounded like something that like, yeah, of course we would, if we're going to base it just on human experience, like, yeah, maybe water could be, but it was just an interesting thought. It was like trying to play with this whole idea of like, rather than like this divine entity, sky god that we can't see, like how would we treat each other if we in the earth if we saw like God, water's in everything. It's in our bodies, it's in the earth. And when we're like poisoning Flint, Michigan's water, building lead pipes, like that that's a corruption of the original goodness that is water. You know,
that's really beautiful.
It was blowing my mind. I have to wish I could find it, but it was just like, but like you were saying earlier, even just like, do I see God around me? And examples like that, I do.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why I think like the story of Jesus is profound. Like, it's a person who was fighting empire, literally, feeding the poor, and Caesar and them, they want that money. You know, the Pharisees, Sadducees, they want their religious rules upheld. And so today I see the modern day religion as like modern day Pharisees. It's just like, we need to have our buildings. We need to have our smoke machines. It's just a whole new song and dance demonstration of like, this to me, this is church. Like what we're doing right now, sharing about our connection to each other and the earth. And so I consider myself a mystic as far as like, I just think there's so much to the universe that we don't know. It's all a mystery. But when I quiet my mind and I meditate, and when I choose to like silence my ego to uplift somebody else, or to like humble myself and accept some kind of truth I need to learn from a moment, you know what I mean? I see that as like God speaking to me. But everything used to be way more literal growing up. You know, I used to try to pray for people to be healed and miracles. And I used to think that a whole other level of, I can make the simulation do what I wanted to do, you know? Like, you will become a Christian. You will cast out those demons, you know? Yeah. And I just, so I digress.
So was it hard for you to accept that you're more mystic?
Yes. I mean, it was difficult reconciling it with myself and family members and old friends. Just because there's people who are in my life who genuinely think I might be going to hell now.
That's a lot.
It's escalated. It escalates. You know, it escalated pretty quick. And to me, heaven would be maybe cool. I don't know. It also could sound, if it's like a heaven where it's kind of like I had a philosophy professor ask in college. It was a philosophy of religion class, actually. He asked a kid in class, he was like, what's your favorite activity? Like something you don't think you'd ever get sick of. And he's like, oh, I love playing golf. He was on like the UCM golf team. He's like, okay, you die, you go to heaven. St. Peter's there. He greets you, gives you the tour. And he's like, here's all of the golf courses in all the universe. And you just see a flash in your head. You know, they're everywhere. Billions, trillions of golf courses. And he's like, if you did it for, let's just say it took you, let's just go and be crazy. Let's say it took you 1 trillion years to play all the golf courses in the universe. What do you do then? You know? Do you start at the beginning? Play, or, just the idea of like, and I know people have like, well, but heaven is going to be above our understanding and knowledge. It won't be like our human minds now. We'll just be in this like blissful euphoria, sense. But then, I hear people like, well, when I die and go to heaven, I'll see my family and my friends and all these people I lost, And this is not a slam against my family or my friends. I love all of you all. So hear me. I love all of you. But I do not love you all enough to be in your presence forever. Never ending. Like, just like, my brother annoys me sometimes, and like, I get it. Well, Micah, you can travel to this side of the universe and not have to be around your brother. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, Caleb. Don't listen. But you hear what I'm saying? Like, even our human understanding of that kind of heaven, like, it doesn't make sense. And that's why, like, the irony of that kind of world or that mentality is that you could have a heaven where everyone's begging for death, where everybody is like in their own kind of hell because you're kind of cursed with everlasting life. So if there is a heaven, I feel like it is like an energy essence field that I might join, but I'm not really conscious like I am now. I'm not like, I'm Micah stuck in my thoughts floating through clouds. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
It's just hard for me to wrap my head around, pun, in the universe, But is there a spirit that connects all of us? And do I feel lucky to get to experience that right now? Yes. Yeah. But what happens after death is what's true for every single person is it's a mystery.
Right. Yeah.
The people, they've written books and sell you on all their, I had this vision and I dreamt this and I even died for 10 minutes and I saw this. And the reality is there might be parallels or similarities, but none of us know factually 100% for sure what happens.
What's going to happen, yeah.
But I like to think that I'm going to greet death like with open arms. And I kind of like how before birth, it was just darkness. I don't know. I feel like that would be a very peaceful way to welcome death. It's scary. It's scary.
But it's reality.
But I'd like to think that, I think I'd be more at peace. And, like I said, like a dark, ignorance. Like, it's just an empty, maybe I feel in those last moments this tie to the energy that it consumes all things, and then poof, I cease to exist. What do you think? Sorry, I get heavy.
No. What do I think? I don't know, to be honest. I feel like that's one of the things that I've been like really, really struggling with recently. Like, so what happens when we die, But as far as heaven, I love the idea of heaven.
Sure, yeah.
Like, but I don't know. That's just reality.
Get to eat food and not get fat. That sounds like that sounds wonderful.
Really good.
I want to do that forever. Yeah, just like
right.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you get to play whatever golf course or do whatever activity you like forever, I guess at some point, it could be fun.
Yeah, I think we'll like all just be gardeners, to be honest. Like we'll just have like our own little gardens and like we'll be in like this community and just sharing everything and just like continuously like just expanding the world that we live in, going into new territory. I don't know.
That'd be fun. I love that. That sounds like a beautiful heaven. I've heard people say like whatever our hearts desire. Maybe like you'll get a version of heaven where you get to do that, and there's. If God's so big, why would it be just
one thing?
Yeah, one thing,
I understand that, but then that kind of doesn't make sense to me because like then truth is just not absolute. If like we all have like our own idea of like what's going to happen and that does happen, then there's like no absolutes. And that bothers me.
You're like, I need an absolute truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me that's been the hardest thing to let go is, I mean, for the longest time I felt like I had the absolute truth. Like, I mean, I would go up and share my faith with strangers on the streets. I'd go witness and like I said, some weird stuff, like sometimes before we would go out praying, I would be like, okay, I see a red shirt in my head. I see brown hair, glasses. And, again, this could just be general AF kind of stuff. But I'd go to Walmart with these friends for church and I'd see a couple and I'd see a red shirt, these glasses. And it would be like exactly as I saw in my head. And I'd go up and like start sharing Jesus with them and they would just oh my gosh, like, you're a freak.
Literally. Yeah.
Or other times they'd be like, again, if they were already a Christian, like, oh my God, and there was some moments, I had some beautiful moments where like I would just like notice somebody looks, like they're having a bad day. And I just would feel in my gut, like, this voice. It's like, hey, ask them if they're doing all right. And I'd just be like, hey, like, I don't know if you believe in God or not, but I feel like God's pressing on my heart, like, to just check in on you. Yeah, are you doing okay? And then they just break down crying. And then we'd have this whole heartfelt moment. And I guess the way I see God is, like, rather than like, yeah, there's this guy daddy who just like every now and then taps into me and is like, do this. It's more about my intention to open myself up and like see those moments of connection. And you can call it God. You can call it, divine connection with people. You could argue just it's what it is to be human. Like, I could have just saw that this person looks a little distraught at this moment, and I just want to stop, and I'm not a Sherlock Holmes, but hey, can I check in on you and see if you're okay?
Yeah.
But just doing that creates a godlike moment, right? Like, it creates this moment of like, this person saw me, took their time to like check in on me, and I just think so many of us are so desperate to have something tell us why we're here. What the hell? Like, just to feel like there's something looking out over our shoulders, looking out for us. And I guess that's the biggest loss for me right now. It's just, this idea that maybe there is no God who can, wield me like a puppet and move through me to interact with people. But then just accepting that maybe there's a simple beauty and just not tying it up to some divine conspiracy to stop in this Rue 21. Pretty sure that's what it was. A store, clothing store. Just like, I don't know if God was like, on this day in 2004, Micah will go into a PacSun and talk to this cash register person, and like maybe there's less divine craziness going on, and it's just, hey, this is just the power of just seeing each other and being willing to just, instead of just being a selfish, egotistical, whatever, just I'm going to go out and do my own, I'm just going to keep doing life and pause and just check in on some stranger.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of what Jesus's magic was. Like, sometimes we just look at these stories of like these miracles and all this stuff Jesus did, and I think some of the greater miracles were just moments when Jesus would just stop in the middle of a crowd of thousands and just single out a single person. Just like, I see you. Yeah. And I just want to like touch you and heal your ailment, this thing. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Hey, will you share some poetry with me? Because I feel like I've been talking a lot. And as much as I love this conversation about God and the divine, I want to continue the conversation of the divine in your art.
Yeah, sure. I would love to share my poetry.
Did it load that time for you?
Yes, it did. So this is the one that I sent you, Genesis. And I wrote this last year when I had just moved to Kansas City, and I was in this season where I was spending a lot of time alone. I remember at one point last May, I lost my job, and I didn't lose my job. I quit my job because I totaled my car. And so I had just moved to the city 2 months prior, so I didn't really know anyone, and I was just in this extended season of solitude because I couldn't really go anywhere. And it was a lot of self-discovery. It really was a lot of time with God, a lot of time questioning my beliefs. So this piece was birthed out of that season. So,
oh, that sounds Thank you for the context. I like that's my favorite part sometimes. Like
Yeah.
I love poetry just to engage it as the thing, but I like it when the poet shares some of the context around it.
Yeah.
I'm clearing my throat for you. I'm just kidding.
Genesis. Before all else, I made you. Here, beside the angelic beings, is where you were formed. I clothed you in dresses of white, belts of gold, and robes of purple. You were my child, my beloved. I gave you life, a body to call your own, and a family to call home. On earth, I gave you gardens, scenes of cherry blossoms, and isles of sunrise. I gave you breath and called you by my name. Daughter, did I not give you life? Bring forth to you the sensation of truth, show you the beauty in your everyday and the power of your mind. Before all else, there was me, your creator. And so we're knitting you together like a soft sweater, drenching your cloth in oils of jasmine. Daughter, I named you, chose for you the finest letters, embedded them into you like colors to the sky, ever transforming, moving within your season, rising, resting, showing parts of you, all of you, none of you, like the moon in July. In the foreground of heaven, I created you on purpose, for purpose.
Snap. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Mm.
So this next one, I have a series called Dear Eva, and I write letters to my younger self, mainly to like who I was in middle school and high school. I struggled a lot like with depression and anxiety, and like to the point where like I was like very suicidal for a while, and just kind of like trying to heal that part of myself. But like in the Dear Eva series, I started writing letters to different feelings, I guess. And so this one is titled Dear Sadness, to kind of like explore my relationship with sadness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love that concept of just my therapist helped me to do something similar where like there's a part of myself you like write to that part of you that feels away. So I like that you chose to write to the emotions or like sing about. So sorry.
No,
please,
you're good.
let's hear about it.
Yeah. Okay. Dear Sadness, I've often run from you in panic and tears and searched for solace. Truthfully, I do not like you. You have occupied my heart for years, stealing joy and robbing me of life experiences. You've made my mind home and invited strangers, anxiety, depression, and demons I did not wish to befriend. But I have not seen the beauty in you. Because of you, I can love others. I've learned to listen as they talk about you, hold them when tears leak. You have brought friends to me, ones I would not have otherwise known. Trust, transformation, and acceptance. Often I've seen you as a disturbance, but I'm beginning to understand that you offer new beginnings. You always meet us at the crossroads of pain and healing, bitterly pushing us forward. I have not recognized the growth you have gifted, the unopened boxes filled with wisdom and lessons learned from past lives. You've come to expand my mind, grow my heart, that I may experience the fullness of life. Sadness, I do not love you, but now I respect you.
That was really deep. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you feel like poetry is like that kind of outlet to speak to your emotions? Or do you feel like it's like letting out your emotions or a mixture of all of it?
Both. Yeah. I started writing when I was 12, and it was like that summer we were going to Kenya, and my dad like gave me like this purple butterfly notebook, and I still have it to this day. Ugh. But it just helped me connect with myself in a way that I couldn't connect with others. And so all the things that I couldn't say or was feeling and like didn't know how to talk about it, like I could write about it. And like my vocabulary was just expanded because I had a notebook, I had pen and paper. And so I started writing when I was 12 and started poetry, I think not much later after that, but I took a couple like creative writing classes, and like that just birthed this whole new world, honestly, where like I could connect with myself, but more than that, I could connect with others, you know? And like there's so many times where like I'll post like a poem on Instagram and people will reach out to me and be like, wow, like I really resonate with that, and like that will just like spark this conversation. And I think that's what I love most about it, is that when I'm like, dang, like this feeling is like really heavy and like I don't know how to like talk about it with anybody else, like I write about it, I share about it, and somebody feels less alone because I was willing to talk about like my own pain, you know? I think like there's such beauty in that. Like as hard as it is for me to share my story, like the reward of connecting with somebody new or like an old friend in that emotion, that's always worth it. Yeah.
Wow. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, have you, like, I know you've majored in psychology, but did you ever take any writing classes, or did you think about joining any writers groups? Well,
now that I'm in Kansas City and I've graduated, I really want to take another writing course or like join a writers group or something. So I'm actually working on a book right now. So a
look at
poetry
you.
book.
Oh.
So I would love to have a group where I can share more poems with, and like eventually have this book out, you know. But yeah, I would love that. I really would. I don't know where to start though.
Oh, I'm going to tell you where to start.
Yes.
Okay. And I can only speak as secondhand information. So I haven't joined this group yet, but I am like very interested in joining. I've just been kind of like schedule wise, financial wise, trying to figure out. It's not too expensive. I don't know. I think it might be a couple $100 a year. I need to double check that. You can just visit a class, but it's called Writers Workshop KC.
Okay.
And poet Jen Harris, shout out to her. She's cool. We kind of collaborated on a project with my friend Andrew. And she and Vanessa Rico, I think that's her last name. They have their own podcast called Confessing Animals Podcast. So I'd love to have them on the show at some point. I've got Jen's number, so we've talked about meeting up. Maybe now that I give her a shout out here, I'll let her know, like, hey, you know, I'm name dropping you now. Now we got to hang out, you know.
You got to do it. Have her on the show.
Yeah, because funny enough, like, I have a friend, Andrew, who does this like collaborative called Collab Tracks. And basically once a month, he splits up the project between 3 people. One's a writer, one's a playlist curator, and the other person creates a graphic design, like graphic art for it. So I was the poet, or you don't have to write poetry, but I wrote a poem for that project. Jen Harris made the playlist on Spotify, and then Andrew designed the art cover for it. So we called it, or the art cover said The Slow Cadence. That was my poem, was called The Slow Cadence of Things. I could read it for you. Yes. If you want, if you would like me to.
I would love to.
I don't think I've shared it on the show yet.
Yay.
But anyways, yeah, if you go to my Instagram and follow Jen Harris, they've got, I'll share the link with you too. Yeah, writers. So anyways, I want to join. It's a whole separate gig. It's like, yeah, like I said, I just know Jen from this, working on this collaborative thing. But yeah, they meet, like, they have like a virtual group that meets, like on Tuesdays, I believe. And then they have like an in-person group that meets in person. Sorry, now I'm trying to find see if I can find this. There it is. Okay. Here's the artwork. I'll do a little pop-up on the...
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I had Andrew on the show too, so he's wonderful at graphic design stuff. He designed the artwork for the Pray for Micah podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, the slow cadence of things. Do you believe in the slow cadence of things? Not the scree-scraw of highways or the beat-bops of cell phones ringing, but the smooth doo-wops of kissing and the hem-hawing of a lingering embrace. You've felt the world in color, but have you seen the sound of silence? Have you heard its beams of pooling light bursting through your chest, longing to taste love's first essence? Were I a vast expanse, I'd fill my abyss with the slow cadence of black holes, so powerful they'd warp my photons of longing to the sweet tune of skidoo pops of stars imploding.
I was expecting
That's it.
more. I love it though.
That was just a short
I
little
love
short stanza
I love it.
poem.
What inspired it?
Huh?
What inspired it?
Well, the ideal behind the project was like the playlists and stuff, but
Oh, so you guys made the playlist first, and then you went
right,
to it.
yeah. So it's like she made playlists, and I would just like do some
Okay.
walks in the
Gotcha.
park, and just so she had some kind of like jazzy kind of songs. So that's where like I was throwing
I
in
see
like this
that.
the scree scraw and the
Yeah.
skidoo pops and the. So I was trying to interject some of that in there, but
Yeah.
then, yeah, just I don't know. It went through a couple different versions or iterations, but yeah, just this feeling of a deep longing of, I mean, everything we've been talking about tonight, this purpose. Why am I here? That just like kind of coming to acceptance with it. That's like let's just fill it with a black hole and just like let that release of cosmic destruction somehow bring all this light and energy and then I kind of messed with the senses, like, you know, I don't know what I said, felt the sound of silence and instead of hear, you know, just like some of those, like, I don't know, I just kind of picture like what would happen if you fell into a black hole and light can't even escape it, you know, like, so I don't know, just playing with this idea of just the cosmos and our feelings and emotions being so heavy, but yet, yeah, like I'm tied to that more than the cell phones and the beep bops of like the busy life that tries to suck me away from the reality we live in, you know?
It was a beautiful piece.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share it.
Yeah,
I wanted to spotlight you as the poet of the night. I don't often get to just, I don't write poetry very often, but that was a fun project, and it was I never got to share it outside of that project. So thank you for giving me an excuse to bring up something that I wrote.
Of course.
Evalyn, what do you like to do for your creative work outside of poetry? What are you hoping to do this year for your creative projects?
Yeah, so I paint a lot. Well, actually, not recently. I haven't been painting a lot, but I paint photography and video as well. So really just anything visual. I really just like capturing life, if that makes sense. Like whether like that's like through photography and like the actual moments like we share with each other, or like just what is going on in my head. And I think for me, like painting is what's going on in my head. Like the things that I can't put into words, the things I can't like share with anyone. Like I just like spill, you know? So that's what I like to do. As far as like this year, hopefully I really want to get one project done that includes poetry.
The book of poetry you're working on. Is that what you're saying?
That one is a whole other thing. That one's
okay. So that's going to be a little bit further down the road.
Maybe, maybe not. I'm talking to a couple publishers right now, so.
Well, shut the front door.
Maybe not.
What? No
But
way.
We'll see.
That's sick.
That's a whole other timeline. But I really do want to release like a poetry like project, whether like that's a longer video, like a 5-minute video that I would post on like YouTube, or just a visual project that would go with some of my poetry. So we shall see.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
Yes. Instagram, Evalyn Ngugi. That's EVALYNNGUGI.
I kept trying to get Siri. I was like, share my location with Evalyn. You do not have an Evalyn in your phone. And it's like spelling her name wrong. I'm like, come on, you stupid algorithm. This is why the robots will never be able to take over the world.
They can't do it.
Like, I can't tell if it's an A or an I, Evalyn. Which one is it? I'm like,
That's
just
funny.
fine. I'll do it. Just
do it myself.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
So Evalyn Ngugi on Instagram.
Yes.
Just
Evalyn
at.
Ngugi. Yeah, just at Evalyn Ngugi.
Yeah, I've peeped at some of your reels, your poetry. It's I love that collaboration of using visuals with your poetry. It's gonna be
Thank you.
your book of poetry is gonna be wonderful. I just know it.
Thank you.
The visualization of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And folks, as you know, you can follow Pray for Micah podcast on all your streaming platforms. Friends, if you can, leave a review for the show. And if you really want to be ambitious, like send me a question. Like my email box for Pray for Micah pod has been kind of lonely lately. So if you have a question for me or any of the guests, there's a good chance I might feature it on the show. But I want somebody, I don't care if it's you, Mom. You just send me that email and I'll feature you, Mom. I'll be like, Shari Chrisman asks, Pray for Micah pod, this question. I love you all, and thanks, Evan, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Till next time. Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on this channel, and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and yes, even TikTok. We'll see you next time.
You are now re-entering the normal world.